have the pad.
Check one, check two, check one, check two, check, mic check. All right, it's 5 o'clock. We'll call this meeting for Monday, the 27th of March to order. Start with roll call.
Josh Jones.
Here.
Tim Van Hookey.
Here.
Edwin Wolhoff. Katie Harrington.
Here.
Matthew Wells.
Here. If you will, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You take it away?
Yep. Good.
All right. We're here this evening to discuss the relationship between the city of Fort Scott and ADM. Tom, how are you this evening?
Good, very good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you for making it. All right. Does anyone have any questions?
Now, I think if Scott, we just kind of come here. Of course, we all know why we're here with the, and just see how our relationship's going with the wastewater plant, AMS, and all that. I don't know, Scott, if you have any insight on how it's been going or what you think needs to be done, if everything's going good. I know last meeting you thought that they're bringing in too many loads right now for us to handle. Is that still your same thoughts?
Yes, sir. Too many loads depends upon the consistency of the loads. But with the consistency of what is being brought over right now, it is too many loads. I would like to see it, even if this consistency is kept up, even a load of, say, 130 loads a month, it's probably not going to be.
How many gallons a week are they bringing in right now? Do you know?
It varies. I don't have a number right now. I know of last Friday. Last Friday we had 163 loads so far this month, with 5,200 to 5,300 gallons per load. But it's the consistency of the load, it's the makeup of the load that is the big problem. I mean, if the water were within the tolerance limits as established by the contract that we have, I don't think that 200 loads would be too much, even more. But I go down there every day. Today, a little bit more smelly down there today. And so I know AMS is really working to blend the bugs in, stir it up, get it agitated and everything. But anyway,
When's the next update from AMS come in with when they measure? Do you know?
I don't know. I have not spoken to them about that since last Tuesday.
When you do have an opportunity to talk to them, Scott, can you ask them how they're going to address the non-biodegradable sludge that is present down there at the lagoons? Because what's left, from my understanding, is non-biodegradable because it's wash off from our stormwater systems. So it's more than likely sand, dirt, and clay that have washed down from the streets and is gathered in those lagoons, especially in those two spots that are still reading 77 inches over on the far east side. I believe that if we would do some sampling there, we're going to find that that is earth, and it's going to have to be mechanically removed in some way. I don't think the bugs are going to be able to eat what that is. Do they have, or have they mentioned to you anything that they will be able to do to remove that?
No, the non-biological components of that, I don't think is even in their repertoire, as far as microbial solutions.
And I don't think it is either. I just know that what we asked them to do was to remove that sludge, and I know that a bunch of that sludge is non-biological. So I just wanted to know what their plan was for getting the rest of that out there so that they can meet what their contract says that they were going to do.
I can ask them, but, I don't think that was in their scope, was it?
They,
I think their scope was just saying getting down to 6 inches.
yeah, they said they would get down
They
to,
say how, or,
yeah.
they said through, but I think their arrangement just said that they'd get down to 6 inch average.
because I remember during the meeting, there were at least two commissioners that made a point of relaying to them how much was being brought over by ADM and the fact that some of that was non-biological. And they said, I think their answer was, won't be a problem, or it won't be a problem, is what they said. So I just wanted to, when you get a chance to talk to them, find out where they are on that.
Okay.
And then I would like to invite our engineer to come into the conversation if he could.
Is it all right before we bring him in if I
Go ahead.
ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Weir, thanks so much for joining us this evening. We know you're extremely busy and coming over here. We absolutely do value the relationship that we have in the agreement with ADM, but as you can tell, we're here because we've got a few concerns. I think this was first brought to our attention almost a year ago, or maybe a little less than a year ago. That not so much the number of loads as Mr. Flater had stated, but the consistency of those loads that were coming in. Now, on our side, I know that, we had an old treatment plant, had a lot of sludge in it, hadn't had anything done to it for 20 years. But kind of what just secondhand or third hand that had been conveyed to us was that as far as the consistency of what those loads comprised, that there were steps or processes that ADM was taking over at your facility prior to us receiving it over here. I think someone had, even in a meeting maybe with Brad or somebody, had kind of spelled out some of those things that were being done. Have any of those things been accomplished yet? Is there any update of what you can give us as far as lowering the potency or the consistency of what's in these accelerated number of loads?
Yeah, so the challenge is, to his point, it's very much true. It's an overall, right? It's both a volume and a strength. Gives you an overall load, right? So initially, our first steps were to try to reduce the overall load, mostly by affecting the volume. We can recirculate a good portion of that water back into the process. The components that are biological that are in the wastewater, primarily it's glycerin. It's actually a product that can be used in makeup, it can be used in food. Our goal is to recover as much of that glycerin as we possibly can. And so we've taken some steps to recirculate or reuse that water back into the process to try to recover more and more of that. We've made some good progress, both on the volume standpoint and the amount of glycerin in there. The challenge is our lagoons there, total storage capacity is around 4.5 million gallons, and that works out to be about 250 to 300 days worth of storage. So even any steps we make, if we make a step today, we may not see the full impact of that for 200 to 300 days. And so we're dealing with a thing that takes a long time for us to see results. And so, the initial steps that we took to reduce volume, brought our overall feed going out to the lagoon from, back the beginning part of last year, going out there was around 28,000 gallons a day. So we've got that down to where our average the last 6 months has been around 14,000. Challenge is we had to kind of give ourselves some storage space, right? And so we've accomplished that by reducing or increasing the amount of freeboard or the amount of head space in the lagoons, where as of today we have around 1 million gallons of additional storage. And so our goal, starting the last couple of weeks, was to greatly reduce the hauling rates coming over here. Typically in the past, we would do the opposite this time of year. We'd actually kind of ramp up to try to accommodate for rainfall. We have some limits that we have to meet as far as keeping a certain amount of freeboard on there just for large rain events. We get 2-3 inches of rain in an event. Well, the area that drains into this lagoon that mixes with wastewater is about 40 acres. So that 2 or 3 inches of rainfall ends up being, a foot of water by the time it gets to the lagoon. So we've actually kind of maintained a little bit higher than what the plan is sending out there in order to give us the freeboard. Now we're at the point where we should be able to, greatly reduce our hauling rates. So I guess one of the questions I maybe have for the group here is, can we come up with what is an acceptable volume at this strength? And if we can reduce the strength overall, does that volume then balance up? Can we go back up to where we were? Is that, we kind of have a plan A, plan B, right? There are some additional changes. We have to go through our approval process. We are dealing with an area that's covered by PSM, so there's a lot of MOCs and things like that we have to go through to make changes in the plant. We've got all that stuff done. We've got piping fabricated, and we're actually taking a shutdown the week of April 17th to install some additional piping changes, which we're hoping makes a significant impact on the strength of that wastewater. So immediate short-term things for the next, let's call it 60 days, is greatly reduce the volume even further than what we have been able to reduce it. And then hopefully these changes in April, we feel will have a big impact on the strength then as well.
Was it just the space that was available when this was first brought to our attention that, it was realized that, hey, might be something we have to fix here, or did something change without you going into anything that's a trade secret? Did something change within your plant from a processing standpoint that caused this? Because the last couple of months of the year, it was looking okay, and then January and February, it kind of got up again, and I can tell you, living over here, people were a little bit upset about that smell.
Understand completely. We don't want it either. We have employees, and all of us live in the community,
Sure.
So we're definitely on the same page there. The things, without going into a whole ton of detail and taking up a lot of everyone's time. So basically, the main driver, the main cause of increased wastewater is our catalyst usage. So we bring in soybeans, we extract the oil from those soybeans, and then we use a chemical process to convert that over to soy biodiesel. One of the components that we use is called a catalyst. It helps speed up the reaction. So we kind of in January, we had two things working against us. The reaction rate is very dependent on temperature. As you can imagine, January is one of the worst months of the year for us, both from an ambient standpoint, and all of the oil that we have in storage tank has had several months to cool down. So it kind of bottoms out in January. The second thing is, the other things that affect how much catalyst we use is the quality of the soybeans. So last summer specifically, we had a lot of free fatty acids, a lot of contaminants on our oil. That was just, it sometimes naturally happens as it gets stored for long periods of time. Those soybeans break down, those components then get contaminated in the oil, we have to use more catalyst. We did see a relatively small harvest in the area. We had near drought conditions last summer, and so we have had to rely on a lot more, I'm going to call imported soybeans, beans that we're bringing from Nebraska, Iowa, other areas, just to keep our rates up. So we had to kind of figure out how to run, because the quality of the beans was very different between the two. So we kind of had that quality issue with our soybeans hit us in January, plus the cold weather. Now, as we have come into February and now into March, that quality issue has kind of gone away and the temperatures have come up. So my expectation is that we're not only going to be able to bring our hauling rates down, is the amount of catalyst for usage should continue to drop. So hopefully we're sending less water out there. so that maybe we can maintain the lower hauling rates for a much longer period of time. Again, I'm trying to just figure out, a 60-month window or 60-day window. It may last through the rest of the summer. That's what we hope. The changes that we're going to be making in April, I think, will be another step. We're just kind of keep throwing things at it to try to drive that catalyst usage down, because that has a financial, it's not only the environmental impact. The catalyst is one of our highest cost things. The more biodiesel we're able to make out of the oil, the more beneficial for us for a financial standpoint. So those things fortunately align very well, right? We have both the reduction of the economic impact plus also reduction in cost of operating the plant then hopefully as well.
And that's good to hear. I'm glad you explained that to the commission, because we've kind of asked before what processes were being done over there that can maybe help lower the consistency and the potency and it's kind of some of the responses we got back, and I'm not singling anybody out, was, well, they're working on it. But when you've got the smell going on here, people want a little bit more than just they're working on it. So no, I appreciate very much you explaining what it was, because I didn't know. I mean, was there something within your system and the conversion and the chemical side or whatever that had broken down, that was overloaded, that was going on, that was causing this increase of what we were getting over here?
Yeah, I think some of the changes we have made and are making are going to make the process a little bit more robust. We were very, very sensitive to temperature. We were very, very sensitive to quality. So we're making some improvements or some upgrades to increase the heating in preparation for next winter, right? So that January we don't have the same issue, because again, just like catalyst, steam, natural gas, those are all costs that are highly affect our ability to operate.
Sure. Tom, you said, how many loads can you handle? Has that never been given to you? Do we not have a formula that we use right now to tell them how many loads they can bring us at what potency?
Not that simple.
No. I mean, so,
I guess if we can look back, if November and December we were heading the right direction,
So-
AMS and was more comfortable with those rates,
right.
that's definitely where we can start as our max and try to even drive it down lower
So,
than that.
Pete, how do we get to where we know? Because that's something, don't you think we should know going forward?
Yes, okay. It kind of goes back into when we got involved, we did an in-depth check on what was the wastewater. I don't think you ever actually did that before. And that's where we came up with the high COD. And then we broke that COD down. Is it biodegradable or not? And if it is biodegradable, how long does it take to break down? Because it's very concentrated. And what we found out is it takes 50 days. Okay? And so we don't have that in Cell 1. And so it goes back to, we've got to get that broken down in order to do it. The number of loads depends on what our concentration is and how fast it goes through. That's why we put in the curtain wall and additional aeration, is to break down that BOD. CBOD is simply a very intense BOD that doesn't break down in 5 days. Most of your BOD is what they call BOD 5, and they look at it for how long does it take to break down normal biological oxygen demand, and that's a 5-day deal. COD can be a lot of different things, but what we found out was it was glycerin, and the problem is that time frame. So that's where we met with Tom, and I met with Tom quite a while ago. The problem is, how can we work together to get that 50 days? And part of it is that, I'm going to have Tom explain a little bit how his system works. But pH is a very big item, because when your pH gets below 6, it kills your bacteria. And so if you looked at your lagoon, sometimes you'll see a brown streak running along the edge of your lagoon. When they dump their system in ours and it's got a low pH, it's killing all the bacteria in that stream until it accumulates into the flow. Remember, ours is not a wastewater lagoon specifically. It's an overflow lagoon. It's made for I&I. I&I is basically stormwater that gets into the groundwater. It comes up, and like you said, it's full of clay, all kinds of items that are in your groundwater, dissolved minerals, etc. And so it's not just wastewater. It does have wastewater in it, and that's why we had the aeration system in that cell 1 to begin with. When you added ADM into the mix, you added a strong BOD mix that the system wasn't used to. And for years, you were okay because, as they say, the solution to the problem is dilution. And your dilution was why you get allowed to go on through and you didn't have the problems. In all honesty, when a large rain event happens, you get a high dilution factor. That obviously helps the whole situation. Yeah, because obviously if you break that down into a BOD from several thousand to a few hundred, it makes a big difference. And therefore, the system is allowed to work. As we stated before, part of the issue is you don't want that slug. You want it to slowly feed your bacteria so your bacteria can eat it up in a timely manner. So part of the issue that I'd like you have ADM consider and talk to us a little bit about their system and the timing it takes to get through their system is what, if anything, we can do to help break that down in their lagoons prior to coming to us. So that BOD, maybe, I don't know what the time frame is in their lagoons, but maybe that first 25 days or part of the time frame can be used up in their lagoon system, so by the time it gets to ours, we can finish the breakdown of that CBOD, if that makes sense. Because we can't get that 50 days. We have no way of doing that. Our lagoons, our only cell that's deep enough to do much good on aeration is cell 1. The other cells are floccative cells, which mean they're basically 5 feet deep of usable depth, which are not made for aeration.
Well, and to your point, then also with those pH levels not being at the level that we need, the bacteria that we've got in there, that pH levels where they're at right now, seeing as we're not between 6 and 8, is killing off the bacteria that we have.
Yes. And it's more than likely doing that to ADM's ponds as well.
Sure.
If we're getting it from after their lagoons, then I question how their bacteria is operating very well in their own lagoons without that pH being adjusted first to get to that 6. Because bugs like between 6 and 9. That's what they like. And I keep saying bugs. I hope you realize I mean bacteria. But that's important, and that's what I'd like to kind of have Tom address a little bit too, is how their system works. I have a map of ADMs, and I'll just pass it to you so you can see it, and Tom can kind of talk through that if you don't mind, Tom. And I also have a map of the cities. I think you guys are familiar with the cities, but then Scott can kind of quickly go through that too as to how it works. But our cell 1 is our main aeration cell. That's where we're going to get the most work out of aeration, because it's got the depth to do something. Aeration cells are normally 20 to 25 feet deep, and the reason for that is it takes time for that air to get up to the top, and therefore it gives the time for the bacteria to use it and to get the oxygen out of it. If it's a shallow depth, the air just goes to the top. It's very inefficient, and basically the bugs don't get time to even use it before it's expelled to the atmosphere. And so that's why when they say aerate a floccative cell that's 5 foot deep, it's very difficult and very, very inefficient because you just don't have the depth for that air to be used. And so that's our biggest problem is the time frame it takes to break down that CBOD. And so that's what we really need, and I want to work with Tom to see if we can figure that out so that we can get that 50 days.
And I don't mean to
That's very
interrupt you.
important.
I don't mean to interrupt you. I mean, and I appreciate explaining it in pictures and everything, but honestly, you're the expert, Scott's the expert, Tom's the expert. You can give us all the papers and diagrams, and I don't know what we're going to offer. And so maybe I ask a different way. Do we have any way of telling right now how many loads we can take in at the level it's coming in now?
No.
So how would you,
What we can do, we have a cell, and we can say what with it, aeration phase 1 and phase 2 are in place, what is the BOD that we can take in order to work it through cell 1 and through the rest of the cells and be able to break it down, assuming no rainfall.
Okay, because that's the way I would run it. Obviously, if we get more rainfall, that helps our situation, as I said. And basically, what we've done with that is say that that amount that we can take, BOD and COD, is about 5,000 parts per million, or pounds per day. So that's kind of a starting point, I guess. Your contract puts it at 1,500 BOD, and we're saying, well, we can jump that with the aeration system that we're putting in place. And what we'd like to do is work with ADM to knock theirs down with some type of a pre-treatment process to help us knock that down.
And Scott, do you feel
Level we want.
the 5,000, as he said?
5,000 parts per million or 5,000 pounds per day?
Which is still, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 3,500 pounds more
Than what the contract.
than what the contract states.
That's true, that's true.
So they can still go above and beyond, and we're still giving a little leeway, and it's still,
That's right. I'm saying that we can give him some
in
leeway
your opinion, is still sufficient to, we can still handle that?
with the phase 1 and phase 2 aeration, yes.
And you don't think it's going to denigrate or cause to slide backwards the progress as far as sludge reduction that we've already had? I mean, you're saying we could take that after the aeration system and the curtain and everything is up and running, right?
Correct. That's
And,
correct.
and we have to complete phase 2 of the aeration, which is putting the aerators in Lagoon Cell 2 and 3.
It actually adds more to cell 1 as well.
And add some more to Cell 1. Now, 3 questions I have. 1, can we make the lagoons deeper?
Very difficult.
2, can we check the pH balance or have them check the pH before it comes over so we know what we're dealing with per load?
Yeah, I think Tom can answer that better than I can, but
Yeah, so that's actually where this conversation started last March.
Yes.
April. So basically, we were doing no pre-treatment of pH at all. It went out there, things were great. We didn't, nobody was having any problems, right? So then we started getting some feedback that, hey, you're sending us too strong and the pH is way too low. I think it was 4 point.
it was 4 something.
Something.
Yeah.
So what we started then, our first step, which was a fairly easy install, but definitely some chemical costs. So we're pre-treating, we're adding a pH plus. If you're thinking about a big pool, right? You're putting your pH plus in there to bring the pH up. So again, think back to the 200 days of storage time though, right? So we started making changes to try to treat the pH going out there. Right now, our target pH going out there is 6.5. And so we've slowly seen it start to come up. It is kind of been stuck at 5.8, 5.9 for I think 2 or 3 months.
Well, in January, it's 2.76, what we got
Well,
in January for that load.
yeah,
It's been hanging out at 5, but in January, it was 2.76.
pH?
That's what, I don't know if that's right, because everything else was 5.72, 5.
Because that would be a super low pH.
I mean, bottom line, yeah,
Right.
the pH is key. I mean, I've got a hot tub at home. Even I know. I go out
Right.
there and I check it for pH. I got to
Yep.
keep it between 6 and 8. If I don't, Laura only knows what's going to be swimming around.
Yeah, we haven't seen 2s on our samples.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying it seems like a big outlier, right? I mean, that's an incredible amount.
Yeah,
Because
that's
pH
like
is
an error,
Logarithmic,
honestly.
so it's by multiples of 10. So difference between 5 and 6 is a multiple of 10. Another is
Yeah.
100. So that would be 10,000?
That would, yeah, be huge.
Huge. So we haven't seen 2. We have seen a lot of the 5.5s, 5.7. And so starting in January, we really started pouring the coals to it, so to speak, and putting a lot more chemical in there. The thing we're seeing is we have seen, fortunately, since some of the changes we made, we've seen the dissolved oxygen start to come up. So hopefully our bugs are in a better atmosphere for
Right.
growing. So we're seeing more activity. Part of the challenge is, though, as it starts to break down, there's a reaction that actually starts to create some acids in there, which can then drive the pH down again. So even as you're breaking it down, correct me if I'm wrong, you are going to start consuming more and more of our pH plus, so to speak. So it has been a battle. It's something that we have had to add more and more. We've taken our concentration of the sodium hydroxide that we add to it. We started at 8%. We're up to 35%. We actually had some problems in January where the lines froze, cold weather again, kind of working against us. But it is our goal to get up to a 6 minimum. That is something we're trying dang hard to do.
And do you let us know right now in advance, a truck's on its way, its pH level is ...
So we have two different haulers. Right now, R2 is Construction is the company that hauls it to City of Fort Scott. Starting in, I believe it was May of last year, we actually have a contract with a second company, Crystal Clean. They test every load. They're actually hauling loads up to Kansas City right now. So there's a portion of our wastewater that's going up to Kansas City. One of the things that we can definitely, discuss in this is, if there is some gallon limit that we want to target for the next, let's call it 30 days, and if we need to drop that further the next 30 days, or however we want to start that conversation, we do have other outlets. It's more cost. There is more cost to that because we're trucking it further, diesel costs and stuff like that. And then there is, there is a revenue thing that we need to make sure that we're
Right.
taking care of.
Yeah,
right?
I'll be honest with you. My goal would be to have you help us be able to treat everything that you need to send.
I didn't want to say that.
That's how I personally feel. And if there's a way ADM can help us increase our production down at I'm willing to look at those options as well. If y'all can help us expand, build a new lagoon, whatever needs to take place, I'm happy with that as long as we can keep things where our plant tells us it needs to be. So I don't want to put a load limit, any of that kind of stuff, if you can help us be able to handle what you're bringing us.
There probably is some short-term limits that we need to try to target, though, right, to help kind of get over the hump, so to speak, get rid of some sludge, get some additional aeration installed and things like that.
How much, you said 5,000 pounds per day. How much do you think we're hauling in now?
So let's touch on that for just a second. So 5,000 pounds of BOD a day. The agreement is 1,500 parts per million.
It is. You have to go back to, when you do pounds per day, that has to do with your flow as well as the rate. And so I'd have to go back and calculate it too as to what it would be.
So the loads you've sent up to Kansas City, have there been any concerns with where you're disposing material up there? Do they have a bigger facility than we do? Do they have,
Not yet. So we've kind of stepped into that. So starting, I believe it was in May, we started 5 loads a week. Then we went to 10 loads a week, and that's kind of where we've stayed. The meeting we had back in January, we kind of were getting the feeling that, hey, things are headed the right direction. You guys were seeing a big decrease in the amount of sludge. It seemed like things were heading in the right direction. Obviously, we're not there today, right? So we can look to expand or, 15, 20. It's just we have an agreement with them for the 10 loads a day right now. We can go back to them and say, hey, can you guys take 15? Can you take 20? Because what they're doing is they are solution by dilution, right? So they are trying to balance their system as well. So far, it hasn't caused them any adverse effects. There are other options that we haven't taken any further. Springfield, Joplin, we've talked to other vendors that could handle this. But again, it win-win, right? We want to make sure that if you guys are able to take it, that's the best place to go for both of us, because we save then on hauling costs and diesel and getting truck schedules, which has been a bit of a battle for the last 2-3 years.
so they're watching it though, because you said so far there hasn't been any.
They have not
issues
had
up
any
there.
concerns.
Okay.
So they literally test the pH of every load. And so we're getting samples every day. So right now they haul 2 loads a day, 5 days, 10 loads a week. That's the rate they're hauling at. So we're getting 2 samples a day. We haven't seen below a 5.5 for a little while. So again, we just keep pumping more and more pH plus to it, so to speak.
So what would we need to do to be able to get that same treatment here as far as knowing what the pH levels are before it comes to us?
So
something-
this is where it starts to run to the extent of my wastewater knowledge. So Michelle Fry, she has her PhD in this stuff, so she's my expert. I wish she could have joined the call today. She was actually out of the office this week. She has helped other ADM locations. She got her doctorate in this kind of stuff, so she's my expert, right? So, she had kind of thrown out some options. There are some anaerobic treatment options where it involves tanks, and you basically drive a certain amount of bug in there that survives in an oxygen deficient atmosphere. So you basically treat it that way first, and then you send it out to a stabilization or an aeration lagoon to then treat the rest of it. It's much more intensive. There's a lot more chemistry and a lot more fine tuning. It's not just, pump it out there and put the air onto it. There's a lot of very tight parameters to run an anaerobic. I have never operated one, but she's kind of my expert that said, if we were going to try treating this ourselves on site, that's probably where we would go. We talk long-term things. She has also suggested there are skids that can be brought in that can be on more of a smaller scale, where we could basically treat some of our wastewater out of the lagoon, run it through this, go to a storage tank, and then that storage tank would be where the trucks would pump out of for hauling to you guys. So there are some steps we could take. It's just, how do we best get there, right?
Jason, isn't Pittsburgh anaerobic? Is that what theirs along the highway is?
No, they have an anaerobic sludge. That's from their old trickling filters. Anaerobic is used, we do it in kill plants. That's the first step when we treat the waste from a kill plant, is to go to anaerobics. Anaerobics will drop BOD by about 65%. But again, they're very deep and lined lagoons. And it's like you said, normally they're covered. You'll see them at various slaughterhouses. They're covered because they're taking the methane off of it. It releases a lot of methane gas, which is collected and then burned as fuel. So you'll see that a lot in any place that deals with a high BOD. You'll see that as a pretreatment process. Is the first thing is anaerobic. But and he's right. I mean, and obviously I haven't gotten into it as to what designs. There are several designs, as you stated. There's some what we call package plants that can come in and take a look at what is coming out of the lagoons and treat that, or vice versa, treat it before it goes into the lagoons through a small processing plant that can be pulled on site. As far as the tank, it'd be a good idea. Like I said before, the idea of having a tank on site or have an ADM put in a pump station force main, which was also talked about at one time, would be you could,
Slow trickle it.
again, trickle it in. I mean, if ADM ends up putting in a tank at their place with a pump, and you could put a system in, so instead of hauling it, you could trickle it into your system via so many gallons a minute versus 6,000 gallons in one dump, And so there's a lot of options in that opportunity to look at that. Again, it's important that your system sees it in a more uniform flow, however we get that. Right. And obviously to knock down that BOD before we get it is most.
So, Scott, where would you say, or have we heard, is there any pending status, or does KDHE have any concerns right now?
Sure, they have concerns. Every month I send a report to KDHE, several people there. Friday, apparently somebody called KDHE and complained about the smell. And Friday we had a representative of KDHE come down to the wastewater plant and just do a tour and inspection with Alec, the superintendent of the plant. They have concerns, especially since 7 of the last 12 months, we have exceeded our discharge permit. Okay. They know that we're working on it. Anybody can tell that, if it comes down there, they can tell that we're working on it. But nothing was said definitely or definitively that you've got 30 days or you've got,
It was kind of a, hey, we noticed this is going on, so, what are you guys doing? I mean, it's not immediate or whatever right now. They're not like, hey, shut the plant down 30 days, 60 days. They didn't give you
They'll never shut the plant down.
yeah, they didn't.
They will never shut the
But they
plant
didn't give
down.
you
You just can't do that.
They didn't give you nothing. This has to be done in 30 days. This has to be done in 60 days. This has to be done, nothing like that.
They didn't, no, they did not give me
They came down on a thing and they said,
anything like that.
Yeah, I just, as part of the commission, I'd like to know if, in his position, does it look like this is pending? Does it look like, what are their concerns?
yeah, that's what, and you make it sound like they have concerns with nothing immediate ending or nothing like that.
Well, and, he told me KDHE doesn't regulate smell,
Right. I mean,
you
as
know.
far as
but,
everything else,
uh,
what they do regulate.
and we do a good job down there. Alex and everybody does a good job down there. When we exceed the limits of the discharge permit, people need to realize that we're talking maybe by anywhere from 20 to maybe 100 milligrams per liter on certain things, BOD or something like that. It's not a great amount. I hear terrible rumors that we're putting horrible waste into the rivers, and that's just not true. People need to realize that.
People think when it,
People need to quit talking about it. That's just not true. That's not the truth.
it's, I mean, it's not, what you're saying is not uncommon for plants across the state to over discharge every once in a while. Is that what, I mean, I don't
Right.
know. So.
Well, and
Just
the
just
minute
what I'm saying
amounts.
is the fact that we have been exceedance of our permit 7 of the last 12 months. It's just showing that something's not right there. And and we know what it is. We're working on it with the aeration system. They came in last week to go ahead and finish putting the aeration system in lagoon number 1. And of course, you can see that the AMS trailers are there. And KDHE knows that we're working on it.
We do phase 1, 2, and 3, and that should help out quite a bit, don't you think? With more aeration in 1, which is phase 2, is that correct?
Yes.
It was more aeration in 1 and number 2.
To answer your question, in December 15th, KDHE wrote you a letter.
Right.
In that, they asked for 3 things. They submitted a plan of compliance, which is what Scott was talking about, to how are we going to solve this issue. Number 2, they wanted us to take additional samples, which Scott's also doing, that's seeing what's happening as it comes out of cell 1 and out of cell 2. And lastly, they wanted to modify your permit. Your current permit did not show that you put ADM waste in your system at all. And so in January 9th, we got together and we wrote a letter back to Tom Stiles, direct to KDH&E, explaining what all we were doing. And that had to do with the grit removal system we're looking at, the UV system, the reuse water, looking at the Davis lift station, and then putting in the aeration system in lagoon number 1 and the curtain wall. And in addition to that, we told them we're working on a PER, looking at the entire treatment facility, and then we went in and we addressed what needed to be done in your permit to show that ADM was putting waste flow into the city's lagoon system. And so all that was done in January 9th of this year, and with the understanding that it's going to take a while to get these items in place. So KDHE was okay with that. They just wanted us to continue to monitor and continually keep them up to date as things were put in place and what was put in place to show that we were indeed trying to take care of the problem and not just ignoring it.
And one of those tests every month that we send is the one to KDHE, right?
Yes. You test twice a month on everything, and all that stuff gets sent to KDH&E, as
Yeah,
well as the other testing that they do anyway.
Twice a month, as the loads are brought in and offloaded right off the truck.
Okay.
We take ramp sample of those.
And the reason it's only twice a month is because it takes that long to get results back. We don't get results back for 2 weeks. And so running them more than that, we're not going to get the results in time to do us any good. So that's why it's just twice a month, because Scott will tell you that you just can't get the results back any quicker than that. So that's our issue.
But we've also increased the testing on the Lagoon 1 and Lagoon 2 effluents. So,
And is there anything, Scott, additionally that we could test on site that would help provide us any information?
I don't believe so, sir.
So, I mean, I think that ADM says they have other places to go if we need to drop it down, and you can, I'm assuming you guys, because you don't know exactly how much they can bring right now, is what you're telling me?
No, not right now.
How
No,
long-
we don't know right now. The only thing we do know is that the sludge is increasing.
How long would it take to know that answer?
That's going to take somebody smarter than me.
It's just a matter of running some calculations, working with ADM on what we have coming in right now.
24 hours, 48 hours?
Back up and work some numbers out. Yeah.
Like how long do you,
What's that?
I mean, it's something you can do fairly quick, though,
It's
right?
something I can do fairly quickly. I just need to sit down with the calculator.
So by the end of the week, you can say, this is what we can handle from you
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
Feel comfortable. And
Yeah, and it's just a matter of working with ADM and seeing what's the best pretreatment process for them, because it's economics. I mean, they're a corporation, it's economics, obviously.
And I think we're all fine.
We've gotta have
with that,
something
But I think an
done.
immediate need.
An immediate need is because as you know, I said in my first question was, you know, we absolutely value the relationship with ADM positively, and we're glad you were able to make it here tonight for this. I think just in some cases, maybe it was lost in translation, lost in the chain somewhere. We weren't really getting some of the answers that we were asking for the last few months. And in all fairness to us, we thought, well, the treatments are going on, must be good. And then we got notification that the sludge level was starting to rise again. We're like, you know, is this sustainable if we continue like we are today? So I think that's a great idea. If we can find out a way of guessing how many we can take for now, so that we're not going backwards in the treatment of the lagoons, that'd be fantastic. But to Scott's point, I mean, without knowing exactly what's in each load, who's smart enough to calculate?
And it'll change as the potency and all that changes too. I know it's a moving target.
Right. Especially when you're talking 200 to 300 days, you know. So when you look at that in lagoons, what we're taking care of now is what happened 200 days ago.
Well, sir, you guys are hauling about $1 million a month right now, though, aren't they? Yeah. So really, it's probably 120 days, 150 days, based on the volume in the last few months. But you're right. Yeah, that's something I didn't really know. I mean, what you're hauling now is something that's done 4 months ago. So
And when like what Pete talked about last Tuesday, you know, with lagoons, I mean, no matter what, there's only so much they can do, right? And so, you know, it comes to that variable of volume over strength, you know. If the strength is not that strong, you know, and then yeah, you can handle a lot more volume. But if strength is, you know, or whatever the consistency is, then the volume reduces.
But if
And-
the BODs and the TSS and the pH are all out of whack, then you can't take as many loads.
Right.
Now, as far as the tank goes, how soon could we have that if we did order it? Is that something we could get here next week?
No. What's that?
It's probably
150,000.
8 to 9 months.
8 to 9 months.
Fully installed, plumbed, working, a year.
A year?
Better not wait for that, huh?
No, obviously not. Can we start getting that load pH done tomorrow, Tom? With every load that they bring us, can they let us know the pH before it hits our system?
Yeah, I would say every load, is that kind of what we're going for? It should.
That would be, I am not a chemist and I am not an engineer, but that would be my recommendation. If we knew what the pH was on every load coming over, that way if there is a 2.7 load,
Well, are we
Go ahead.
getting, are we getting it per day for what we're getting in a day? An average?
Like, it's kind of like, you know, swimming pool, you grab a cup of water out of it, right? If you grab 10 cups of water, it's gonna pretty much be
Be the same.
mostly the same.
The biggest trick is how are we going to adjust it before we put it in our lagoon?
He can tell us what every load is, but
Not gonna matter.
we can't adjust it.
I tell you what, we can say, send that one to Kansas City.
Well, the thing is that's why even a small tank, it's something you can dump it in and adjust the pH before you feed it to the system.
And that's basically what we're doing on the back end of things. So we have a 4,000 gallon tank, much smaller, much cheaper, much easier to get tank. So basically what we're doing is we're pumping out of the lagoon, we're filling that tank, it overflows back into the lagoon, and then that's where the trucks pull out of. So we're sampling the pH on the overflow side of that. We're adding this pH plus or sodium hydroxide to it. So, I mean, we could definitely commit to doing multiple tests daily on that tank.
I mean, if it's not going
I
to
think that would be great, because if we can keep that pH up, that's what you're actually loading out.
Yeah, that's what's going in your truck.
So do you have the space, or have you considered yourselves putting like another 150,000 gallon tank over there on the pretreatment side before it comes over here?
In order to treat a larger volume,
Yes.
'Cause that's literally, in effect, what you were suggesting over here, 150,000
But the only,
gallon tank.
the only difference is the slow trickle.
you're still getting it slugged out of each.
Yeah, you're still, and you said that was the biggest problem was the slug, right?
What's the biggest tank we could get quickly?
I'd have to check with the tank
Okay.
people. You know, we might be able to get a 10 or 20,000 gallon tank fairly quick.
Okay.
Well, that would be still, they're using a 4,000 gallon tank. So.
Right, but if we had a tank, we could put it in when it comes here. We know what the pH is. We might be able to adjust the pH slightly, and then again, still slow trickle it into the system.
Right, if you have one that even handles at least like a truck and a half,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which would be about a 10,000 gallon tank. But we'll check quick and see what's available.
In the current state, though, that our system is in right now, it's still like, I encourage them to continue to do what they're doing from a pre-treatment standpoint, as well as any other options that they can do at their location prior to it rolling over here.
Tom, how often do you talk with Scott and our engineer about these issues?
We've had, roughly monthly meetings. I have a meeting with our group biweekly, so every other week, because we have other, this is an environmental group, right? So we have air, water, if we have any other issues, because we do have a direct discharge lagoon as well. We have the same kind of permit standards. We have to test the quality of that. And so a lot of times we're talking about that lagoon. We're talking about any other challenges that we have on the site. So it's not that we're talking about this lagoon specifically every 2 weeks, but there is a call and we'll kind of update. We'll provide a lot of the data that we've shared, but it's been roughly monthly. I think for a while there, it was literally every month. Teams call.
But I haven't been involved.
You haven't been on any of them? Okay. Is that something that we can start doing, including our engineering on that?
So you haven't been on any of them, but you're the guy up here doing all the talking. What's up with that, Pete?
Because I know everything about lagoons, that's why. Hell, I've done so many lectures on lagoons, it's not funny.
But yeah, I think this is good that we were able to get together here and discuss this and actually hear from your organization, what's going on, what's being done. Scott, you know, he's right. I mean, we do have a great crew. We do have a great waste plant. We're making improvements to it. But we don't want to, if at all possible, we don't want to backslide at all on those reductions in the sludge and the quality of what's happening with the plant and the air quality and the smell. I think they were down there stirring it up the other day, and I had a couple of people calling me up saying, I smell it again. So.
And I'm assuming you and Pete will get with AMS and make sure they're all on board, what they can handle to get it back down or degradable or not.
Yeah.
Make sure they're all comfortable with whatever. Outside.
Stated that we could still put
Yeah,
those in.
Yeah, I can definitely talk to those guys and let them know, you know.
Make sure they're good with the levels too, it's for them to meet their number.
Right, yeah.
Because you have to understand too that they're dumping in, as they say, millions of bugs and 10% survive. You know what happens to the other 90%? They're part of your sludge. They're food for the bacteria, but that is part of the sludge. They're dumping 90% of its dead bugs. Dead bugs turns into sludge, folks.
I think there's still plenty of sludge to eat there.
Should be. But I'm just saying.
Unless that, remaining, they were down to 20 inches, unless that remaining to get to 14 inches is all rock and grit and rainwater wash
I
off.
think the week before, he said they put all the bugs into cell one, and it made I think he said in 10 days it dropped 6 inches, is what he told us last time, so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, and I guess since then, we don't know until they do the next measurement.
Yes. Till they do the next sludge judge, we won't know.
So it sounded like the last time when they put everything, I guess, all the.
Fly, fight, win.
Well, I think the temperature is going up, and that only helps the situation.
Yeah, that's true. I think they mentioned before, I think still doing cold weather, but obviously bugs aren't as active.
The other thing, yes, but there also was not a stormwater lagoon that they're talking about. They were talking about a wastewater lagoon, and that's a different situation.
Yeah. Which is what I've heard from other cities last year in particular because of the drought. We weren't the only town throughout this region dealing with that smell.
Absolutely, because unfortunately, all in this area used our famous Dickey Clay Pipe Company to put in the sewers, and clay pipe leaks. And we have high groundwater when it rains, and so every system around here has a very high infiltration rate. And when it's a very dry weather, flow drops drastically. And like I say, dilution is the solution.
That's right. So Tom, do you feel like we have a clear plan of action moving forward?
Yeah, I think that the 5,000 pounds a day is definitely a very good starting point. We can do the math.
We can work math easy enough.
We can back out of there. Like I said, we do have some free boards, so let's say hypothetically we needed to drop it from 30 loads a week down to 15. We can definitely do that for the foreseeable future. With the amount of volume reductions we've seen in the plants over the last 6 months, we definitely feel a lot more comfortable cutting those loads back. And we think we'll still maybe gain just a little bit, or at least just maintain. So hopefully kind of get us over the hump and get to where, there's next to very little sludge, let's put it that way. What was your guys' plan then to, you said you got the aeration system installed, is that going to be then started back up?
Part of phase one is partially installed, right? Or is it ready to switch on?
The aerators themselves are in, sorry. The aerators themselves are in the lagoons. Right now they're working on putting up the header, but it'll be hooked to the blower, where the air is compressed, and then they've got a hook. They've got all the tubes running out into the lagoon to each aerator. They just have to get the header pipe hooked up there and the blower and get it running.
They give you a timeline on when that might be?
No, sir, I don't have a timeline on the completion of that yet. But one thing that I believe you spoke about last week was we're okay to, like, as soon as this phase one is done, go ahead and get started on phase two, right?
That would be my recommendation, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I think we're all.
I just wanted to check on that because that was my intent.
Yeah, it'll have to come here and we'll vote on it, but I believe that every commissioner here is committed to doing everything we can to get that treatment plan up and running the way it should have been running.
It's
Before the
already
sludge hits the
designed
fan.
and everything, but it still has to come here for the vote.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Very good.
We've got the pricing on it?
Yes, we do.
All right.
Vote on it?
Yeah.
Bring it to the next meeting. Bring all of it. If you can find anything out about the additional tank, whether it be a 10, 15, 20,000 that we could get
We'll have that for
temporarily to
you.
help handle the pH, let's find out what we can do. And if ADM can help us in any way with that,
So just curious, in that tank that size, excuse me, Matthew,
Mhm.
how long would it then have to remain in that tank before, or how long, if you've had a 20,000 gallon tank full, that you were going to give it this treatment and trickle it in, how long would that 20,000 gallons need to be in that tank?
How often does a truck come to?
Well, it depends. I mean, we may have 9 in a day, or we may have 22 in a day, 17. It varies. The thing with the tank is, whatever is put in there has to be emptied out by the next day.
That's what I'm
It's
saying.
not like we can hold it. It's not a holding tank.
No, no.
It's
What are you going
just-
to be trickling in there? Microbes? Bacteria?
No, we're not gonna we're talking trickling it into, it's simply a tank that we can adjust the pH if we need to. It'll have a mixer in it and a pump, which will pump it into the system at whatever rate we need to go. It'll have a VFD on it, so you can turn it from 50 gallons a minute to 200 gallons a minute in order to run it into the system.
Yeah, so we
Yeah,
simply pull
if
the test, adjust the pH, the flow continues to go out the whole time.
That's right, and
There-
that's
there-
right.
There'll have to be aerated mixer put in there.
That's what I was asking.
pH
What do you have to
adjustment.
put in there and how long does it take?
The
'Cause again,
pH.
we're talking about 9 trucks a day and this would hold 4 trucks.
Yeah.
Right, but my understanding, at least small as it is with pools and everything else, that pH treatment's almost immediate.
That's correct. It's just like your pool. You mix it in and it happens almost instantaneously as far
So we
as
could
adjusting.
have that tank halfway down before another truck came in, correct?
You,
And depending on the size of the tank,
Yeah, this-
yes.
Depends on-
But, I mean, ideally, why we looked at a bigger tank was they don't haul through the night.
gotcha.
So ideally, you'd like to feed that for a 24-hour period, ideally. Because the bugs don't go to sleep, you know?
It's a 150,000 gallon tank. You could feed it at 105 gallons a minute. And have it empty by the next day.
But that would be a year away from
All right,
Yes.
but
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Right now, they're just hauling Monday through Friday. Would there be any benefit to actually being able to haul Saturday and
Sometimes they do. Sometimes on Sunday they do. I don't know about it.
concern of slugging the system? Like that be beneficial?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to tank size and short-term and long-term. But yes, I mean, again, working with ADM, hauling 7 days a week is ideal for us, but it may not be realistic for them.
Definitely worth asking. 7 days versus 5.
I think I saw one go Sunday before last. So I figured they were, how it worked. I seen a R2 truck hauling stuff Sunday.
Yeah.
does everyone feel like we have a pretty good grasp on this? Pete, do you feel comfortable moving forward, what we discussed?
Yeah, and I think we'll work with Tom and his group and continue to try to resolve some of the loading issues.
Yeah, and I think said you were going to work out, for now, finding someone, however smart they need to be to figure out, based on what we're getting and all, do we need to back off on number of trucks, raise, can we
Right.
raise number of trucks, or do we keep it the same?
Right.
You just pass that along to the
Yeah.
commissioners here the next days.
Scott, do you feel good about leaving here this evening with what we've discussed?
Look at your face.
Ready for rain.
That's what I was talking. I do. It's just like with the lagoon system there, same with our lagoon system. It's nothing that's going to happen immediately, and that's the thing people need to realize is we are working on it. I mean, but these things don't just happen immediately. Whatever we do, as I told you before, my biggest interest is just for the good of the city, the good of the plant, That's, so whatever I can do or, work with Tom to do to facilitate that, that's what we want to do.
And Tom, again, we definitely appreciate your time this evening coming over.
No, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to answer some questions and stuff like that. You guys have my contact information. Any further questions? Any questions that I can't answer, I definitely commit to, like I said, getting Dr. Michelle Fry involved to answer the extent of what she can provide for us, because we definitely, do appreciate this working relationship. The processed water we get from the wastewater treatment plant is a huge benefit. We definitely make use of that water multiple times over. I do appreciate the working relationship we have had with you guys, and definitely appreciate your patience. You know, to his point, it does take time, and it can be very frustrating. I'm, if anything, more frustrated than you guys, because I don't want, you know, ADM to be perceived as causing any kind of adverse impacts either on the community or in the environment.
Anyone have anything else?
Brad?
Nope, I'm good. I second what Scott said. This didn't happen overnight, so it's going to take a little bit to fix it. But we'll do it.
No one has anything else. I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Yes.
Tell me, you talked about, shoving this load in all at one time. How long does it take to unload a tanker of sludge?
Wastewater, but Scott?
How long does it take to unload?
Oh, I didn't see on the tractor.
Roughly about 8 minutes. 8 minutes.
8 minutes. So you're getting 6,000 gallons in 8 minutes.
If we're looking at,
If he wants to ask, why don't we go ahead and adjourn, and then he can,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Lisa?
If, because the people can't hear anyways, so.
Go ahead.
Take the vote to adjourn. and then he
Thurston,
can
there's
ask.
the second.
Katie Harrington,
Yes.
Josh Jones, Tim Van Hook.
Yes.
Edwin Woolhoff.
Yes.
Matthew Wells.
Yes.
before the next load comes in or whatever, would 2 hours make a difference from the 8 minutes?
Yeah, but that's why we're looking at putting it in a tank, is so
Well,
they could
that's what I'm
unload.
thinking is-
The problem with
Why don't
unloading in
we-
a short time is the
Why
tanker
don't
doesn't
we
gonna do
get
that.
some